Hi, and welcome to CBU Conversations. My name is Jack Shannon, and I'm the president of Christian Brothers University. Today's edition, we will be learning a little bit more about our Writing Communications Center here at CBU. And joining us today is our Lasallian colleague, Dr. Clayanne Panetta. Welcome, Dr. Panetta.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Great. Well, let me start off by, if you could, talk a little bit about the Writing and Communications Corner here at CBU. It's a wonderful program. It provides an invaluable service to our students, and it's work that you've been doing for a number of years now, and it's recognized for its contribution not just here at CBU, but it's becoming a national model that we're very proud of.
Mm-hmm. It is. In a nutshell, the Writing and Communications Corner, or the WCC, we often refer to ourselves that way, is a place where students can be guided to be effective communicators. We work with all groups of students on campus. We work with all cultural backgrounds. We work with all schools. And when I say all schools, I mean that all communicative projects through all the schools. That could be a composition essay in a first-year composition class. It could be a lab report in a sciences class or an engineering class. It could be a business proposal. It could be a speech, a blog, a digital project. Anything communicative really belongs in the WCC. The consultants truly do consult. What that means is they are trained to not give the correct answer to the project that they're working on. They talk to the student who comes in about options the students may have. There's no one right way to communicate. There are infinite ways to communicate. So really it's a conversation, a collaboration that the consultants have with the students who come in to the WCC. In our physical space, we're not in our physical space right now because of COVID-19. We work really hard to make it a safe place. We offer one-on-one consultations, group consultations, and we offer workshops. We are adapting all of that to online right now. We have the one-on-one consultations happening, and I looked at our numbers just yesterday, and we're almost at the same point we were at this time last year. So I was really pleased that students are signing up online. I was afraid they wouldn't, but they are, and that's working out really well. And we're in the process of putting some workshops together to offer online. So stay tuned for those offerings as we pull those things together. We're reaching out to faculty right now to make that happen. I'll talk a little bit about the consultants and who they are and their roles. They are from across disciplines. I have engineering majors, science majors, arts majors, business majors, and students who specialize in things that students often want to bring to the WCC, like for instance, APA paper or Chicago style paper, students who specialize in those sorts of things. Now they are all cross-trained. They take a class with me where they learn writing across the curriculum and learn how to work with papers and projects outside of their own discipline. But we do have representation from across campus. The consultants are also trained in Title IX. They've had diversity training, and we have adopted the National Council of Teachers of English's resolution that's called Right to One's Own Language. And that essentially says that anyone who comes to the WCC is welcome to use the language that they're most comfortable with. And many of our consultants are actually additional language learners themselves. So it works out really well. The philosophy behind that is if you're more comfortable in a language other than English, composing in the language you're comfortable with is much more successful, even if the project ends up being in English to turn into the professor. Composing in a comfort level is much more, has a lot more, elicits more positivity. The consultants are involved in a large amount of research in writing center theory. They take a class with me as well. They take 3 classes with me. And the 3rd class does delve into research strategies that they often will develop and take to a conference and present. at either a national conference or a regional conference, depending on which one we end up going to a particular year. And they have turned some heads because we often have undergraduate consultants from CBU standing alongside graduate students from other bigger universities talking about similar types of research projects. And it's really exciting for them, and I absolutely love it myself. We're all active, myself as well as all of the consultants, we're all active in the Southeastern Writing Centers Association. And I sit on the board actually for that association right now. The consultants have other roles other than consulting, and this helps our programming move forward. They may be involved in marketing, they may be involved as a workshop coordinator or outreach to faculty, and then data analysis and data evaluation as we measure things that we do. That's generally who we are. I could go on and on, but I know we have other things to talk about, so I'll let you ask me the next question.
So that's really fantastic to hear about how the center has been established. And the Writing Communications Corner, as it's known here at CBU, is somewhat unique, as you indicated. The responsibilities that you give to our undergraduate students are on par with what others are doing at the graduate level. So that speaks volumes about the training and the support they're receiving from you, but also the skills and talents and commitment of our students here at CBU. Mm-hmm. It's also great to hear that we are meeting students in that true Lasallian fashion, exactly where they are. And we understand that effective communications, as you indicated, can be done in a number of different ways. And that's really interesting because there have never been more ways for us to perhaps communicate with each other than we have available to us today. And conversely, we're probably not communicating as well as we need to, given the options that we have. So the fact that the center is working with our students in a unique way around engineering, which is different than if you're a computer science major, and it might be different if you're like myself, was an English major back in school. None of this happens by accident, though, and you've played an instrumental role in creating the Writing Communications Corner here at CBU and now leading it for a number of years. Can you talk a little bit about specifically what are your role and responsibilities as a director are?
Sure. Well, I oversee all of the things I just described. I keep the schedule. I teach 3 one-hour classes to the consultants. These are required classes that they take, and these are academic classes. These are not how to be a good tutor kind of classes. These are, they do projects and write papers for these classes, and learn a whole lot about the way things work in a writing center. I keep the schedule. I oversee all of the outreach, the marketing. I oversee our space when we're in our physical space. Our physical space is adaptable to all kinds of scenarios. And so I'm always moving furniture around depending on what's coming in. If we have a workshop coming in, or if we have a group conversation coming in, I'm always moving things around and adapting that for all of our needs. As I sit on the SWCA board right now, I'm bringing a lot of ideas from other directors, and because I'm collaborating with them and conversing with them a lot during meetings and what have you, and I'm getting a lot of information there. So I'm always looking for other strategies, other ways to look for connections across campus, not just academic connections. We did a journaling for Lent workshop, for instance, once, and we were just about to start right before we ended the spring semester last spring. We were about to start every Wednesday a weekly calm to just either meditate or do yoga or something like that. And I was working with the counseling center to put that all together in campus ministry. We're still thinking about seeing if we can do that online right now. We do a workshop series called April Madness, and the idea is to get through the final projects and to the end to finalize them before they're due at the very end of the semester. I put those things together. In the fall semester, we always have an international write-in, which is a tradition in writing centers, and we've done that in a lot of different ways. Some places do an all-nighter. We've never done that. I don't know that we will, but I'm always just incorporating and thinking about other ways to do other kinds of workshops or other ways to outreach to students to make sure that they're aware of our services.
So here on campus, the Writing and Communications Corner is valued by our students, obviously, both those who are part of the consulting group and those who benefit from their services. Our faculty also understand the great importance and the value-added role that the WCC plays here at CBU in terms of helping our students not only be prepared to succeed in their courses, but as you said earlier, become much more effective communicators in a variety of areas, as well as through a variety of communication channels, and then a number of settings as well, which is very, very important for us. We also are gaining recognition across the country. And as you said, we compete or learn from others in the work we're doing. We go to conferences, our students are there as undergrads doing the same presentations and holding their own, and maybe even doing better than that with individuals or graduate students in similar roles. I understand that we just got some really great news about some further recognition of the Writing and Communications Corner in terms of a recent certification. Can you talk a little bit more about that certification and what it means to us here at CBU?
Absolutely. We did. We just, in the spring, we were out in quarantine when this happened, when we got the word that we had been certified. That a lot of people don't know what that means, but that means that we're nationally recognized as a stellar center in the International Writing Centers Association. It took us about a year to get together all of our materials to apply for certification. But I knew that we could do it. I knew that we had the things in place to get certified. I fully expected to get a letter that said, hey, this looks really good. Revise this and this and this, and then get back to us next time and submit. But that didn't happen. We got the certification at the first round. And while we were getting everything together, we ended up putting a lot of programmatic pieces into our programming so that we could talk about it in our certification. Well, all of those things are now in place. So we are better than ever because the certification kind of pushed us to be that, and it makes us a better place at CBU. We wrote an inclusivity statement. Our research projects took us to the next level. In fact, right before we left last spring, we left a lot of things hanging in the spring. The consultants were in the process of putting together a plan for a high school writing center that they want to incorporate. And as soon as my new consultants are finished with their research class, I think we'll pick that project back up. It's sort of on hold because we're still dealing with COVID-19. But once that hopefully goes away fairly soon, that project will pick up. So just a lot of things that if we're reaching out to high schoolers, that helps us with recruitment, and it helps us do better for the community. We've talked to our community engagement department about creating a community writing center. Once again, more Lasallian work for the community. So those sorts of things that we put together for the certification and we're able to earn certification are now a part of our identity that makes us better than ever for CBU.
That's really great to hear that collaboration's underway with our AutoZone Center for Community Engagement. That's who we are as a university. At CBU, we've always taken great pride in the fact that while we do fantastic things here on campus, we reach beyond the boundaries of Central and Parkway to also engage with our community and to make sure that our neighbors also benefit from the time and talents that we have here resident on campus. You purposely have used a number of terms, and I want to come back to that for a second. You talk about consultants. You don't talk about tutors. I think that's really important. You talk about learning collaborations where there is this value, I think, that's derived not only by the student who's coming to the Writing Communications Corner to get some assistance in learning how to become a more effective communicator, but also that collaboration benefits you in a way as director, and you've told me in the past, and also our student consultants as well. Maybe for a moment or two, could you talk a little bit further about what exactly those learning collaborations involve? You know, what happens when a student signs up to avail themselves of the services of the Writing Communications Corner, and then what type of things, you know, then ensue between a consultant and a student who's looking to take advantage of the WCC's services?
Sure. Well, students sign up online. We have an online system where they sign up and they can make an appointment using our online scheduler. It's fairly easy to follow. They can do this by looking at our website and follow the directions. Once they're in a consultation, it's always going to be individualized. Every student will have their own individual consultation. There's no one size fits all. But there are some principles that the consultants do follow. For one thing, they will look at higher order of concerns over lower order of concerns. And this is a writing center standard that every writing center is going to follow. And it's this. The consultants will help students look at content and organization first, thesis development, that sort of thing first, before they will look at stylistic issues like grammar and mechanics, word choice, verb subject agreement, those sorts of things. And a lot of students want help with those things first and not the organization and content. But the philosophy behind our strategy is this. If you work really hard and you get all of your grammar and mechanics just wonderfully beautiful and everything's working really well, and then you go back and you work on content and organization, you're going to add more sentences, you're going to take out sentences, you're going to join sentences together, you're going to add another example, another whole paragraph. And when you reorganize, that often means you have to rethink the way paragraphs go into the next paragraph. In other words, you've created other opportunities for attention to grammar and mechanics. So you've wasted that original time, really, that you've spent on grammar and mechanics. So our philosophy is wait till you're comfortable with your organization and your content, and then we'll help you with all the stylistics. There's a rumor that goes around that we don't help with grammar. That's false. We help with grammar for sure. It's just we don't only do grammar, and grammar is not the first thing out of a consultation. At the end of a consultation, the consultant will write a session summary in our system. This is held private for us. So if a student makes an appointment with consultant A on one day and consultant B on another day, consultant B can look at the session summary just to kind of see what the student worked on, so they don't have to reinvent anything or anything like that. If a student would like for their professor to receive a copy of our session summary, just to let the professor know how they've worked on their paper, they're welcome to ask us to do that. And most every time the consultant will ask the student, would you like a copy of the report to be sent to your professor? And students get to make that decision themselves. They can also have a report sent to academic services if they're working with a counselor there, and maybe the counselor suggested that they come see us. That sort of thing. But unless a student requests, and they also can have a summary sent to themselves. And the summary is not anything judgmental. It's only a summary. It's a list of things that we've worked on in this particular session. But we use them ourselves, as I said, for the consultants to look at and use for future consultations. And sometimes just to make sure that a student was told a certain thing, maybe a consultant says, wait, did I tell them that thing I meant to tell them? And they can look back at their summary and say, yes, I wrote it in the summary. I must have told them that. So we use them for our own purposes like that, but the student has the control over who else gets to see it. And then we encourage them to come back after, if they haven't finished their project or if they're still in the process of the project, we encourage them to come back. We're all about making sure we have good relationships with our students. So often the consultant will also get to know someone, ask them what their major is, what's a little bit about them and things like that. We want it to be comfortable. And we're working harder than ever on that online because there's that disconnect. And yeah, that's pretty much the way it goes in the consultation. Oh, I should also mention that they're 30 minutes in length. Often students don't think that's enough time, but this is also a writing center standard. And the philosophy behind that is after 30 minutes, we start doing too much or everyone's tired. 30 minutes is usually really the limit that the brain can handle new things. And we don't let students sign up back to back for 2 30-minute sessions. However, they are welcome to sign up for a 30-minute session, skip a 30-minute session, and then sign up for the next 30-minute session. And the idea there that they might either take a break in the middle or maybe work on the things they talked about in the first 30-minute session. So that's the reason every so often a graduate student will end up having a 45-minute session because their papers or projects are longer, but generally it's 30 minutes.
So earlier in our conversation, you mentioned March and how things became very different with the global pandemic. We made the decision here at CBU to shift to remote operations for the remainder of the spring semester. We're back here now on campus with a hybrid model where about 20% of our classes are fully face-to-face, about 30% are fully online, and then the remaining 50% are a blend of on-campus instruction as well as online or remote learning as well. We've all made adjustments. This has been a tremendously challenging time for all of us here at CBU. As a Lasallian community, we've rallied and we've done what's been needed to continue to serve our students. However, and I know that you and your colleagues at the Writing Communications Corner have done just that as well. Can you talk a little bit about some of the modifications and changes you've made in response to the pandemic?
Absolutely. Our larger Writing Center community came out with a statement in the summer that said that they recommended all of us to go online because we couldn't really do the work the way that we do our work face to face because of the social distancing requirement. That means someone has to sit at one end of the table and at the other end of the table, and that's not good collaboration. They're yelling across or something like that, and people can't get side by side with a paper. So they came out with this statement, and I, because we are CBU, and I'm tuned into lots of students really need to have a in-space consultation. I still was trying to figure out a way to have some face-to-face consultations when we came back. The spring was hard. We went online very quickly, and we had always had some online offerings, but not 100%, of course. And most of the consultants had not been trained for online. They got trained within 3 days, and they were ready. I came back from spring break knowing this probably would happen. And so we did a quick turnaround. I said, by Wednesday, you all need to make an appointment with me. And I trained them, and they pulled it off. But that experience made me realize that it wasn't a 100% a wonderful thing. So even though the larger community had recommended going online, I and a few other directors said we could probably make this work. But as I thought through the ramifications of our very nice space and how people like to move around our space, that movable furniture once again, I realized the risk was just too much to possibly spread germs. I wrote up a whole plan of wipe off your space before and after and wash your hands. And I realized that's just going to be too much. So we ended up going online. And I'm glad that we did, because we all can breathe a little bit more to know, okay, we know our plan and there's not the pressure for always cleaning behind everybody. We look forward to being in the space again. Of course, we prefer face to face. Our online system does give us the ability to use audio visual, so students can see the consultant if they prefer. Sometimes they opt out, and if they opt out of audio visual, they can use a chat function, and so the consultation happens over chat. And we've had both. We've had only audio, we've had audio and visual, and we've had only chat. All of that has happened so far, and it all seems to have been pretty successful. But yeah, it took a lot of thinking and figuring out. And I'm trying not to email the consultants every day, because I don't see them now in the space. I can't walk out of my office and say, hey, this is what we're doing now. Gather around, let me tell you about this. I now have to email them all of that. And I said to them the other day, you really need to be putting my emails in a folder, because this is all very important. You don't need to overlook this. And hopefully they're doing that, but I'm trying not to email them every day, because something else, I'll have another idea of, oh, this would work really well. Oh, I learned about this other thing. So it's been a learning process, but I think we've hit a stride right now, and it seems to be working really well, but we're always troubleshooting.
So you've shared with us a number of the ways that the Writing Communications Corner has had to adjust in the light of the pandemic. And I know that hasn't been easy. I've heard from others across campus that things that we've taken for granted, like you said, the ability to pop your head out and to talk to a group of consultants at one time, no longer is there. So you've got to adjust and modify. And I appreciate the effort that you and your colleagues have made to make that happen. In true Lasallian fashion, though, beyond that resiliency that you have displayed, we also have been able to identify some silver linings, so to speak, in what's been happening over the course of the last 6 months. And I'm hearing a number of stories across our community about new opportunities that have been identified coming out of the adjustments we've had to make in response to the pandemic, or alternatively, new ways that we're thinking about things as a result of the pandemic. All right, do you have any examples with the Writing and Communications Corner that you've identified a new way of doing business that's exciting and you're going to continue to adopt going forward?
Yes, I mentioned earlier that we've always offered some online consultations. Those usually were reserved for, we didn't say this, but usually the people who used those opportunities were non-traditional students who maybe didn't live nearby us, who maybe went to school at night and couldn't get to our day hours, or something like that. And they were used, but I would only train 1 or 2 consultants to just handle the online consultations. And we didn't advertise them a lot, because we really wanted students to come in face to face, especially resident students, because we're not that far away. But we're not, everyone isn't a resident student. And so I realize now that we probably need to have more online options for commuters, or maybe resident students who maybe someone sprained their ankle and they can't get up and down the stairs from the 4th floor of Rozier, or something like that. And as we've kind of put together different strategies to make these successful, I see opportunities there for other ways of putting consultations together. And the online workshops, we'll see how those go, but we may offer some online workshops in the future. One huge advantage we realized pretty quickly, we didn't have to think about when Rosadale was going to close, or anything like that. We could schedule at any hour, at any day, on any day, actually. And the consultant's ability to work from home has been an advantage, because there have been some times when students just couldn't physically get to us to have consultation appointments at, later in the evening or something. But if they can do it from home, that transportation piece has gone away. And so they're able to keep hours at 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night So those are some things that we'll think about in the future, using the online option as something that we probably will put in place going forward, and not something that's kind of tagged on, but a part of our programming. So those have been some nice reveals. Oh, another director said recently, there will be no going back because we've all learned so much. We're going to all be redefined because we're learning as we go, and some of it is positive. And I guess it's nice to see a silver lining. And
Right. That's a great perspective to have. You've noted that the Writing Communications Corner is a peer-to-peer model, that students are working with other students in this area. If I were a student who wanted to be a consultant, how would I learn more about that process and take advantage of that opportunity?
Sure. I put an ad with career services, and students answer that ad. They supply me with a recommendation from a faculty member who can speak to their communicative excellence. This doesn't have to be an English professor. It can be any professor who can speak to their communicative excellence, and the professor will communicate with me on the recommendation. The students who are interested also give me a writing sample. They have an interview with me, and in the interview, I'm looking for someone who is potentially a good collaborator and someone who can hold a conversation pretty well one-on-one. I share with them the required classes and the roles that they would play, because they probably are thinking they just have to help people on papers. And I talk about the cross-disciplinary focus and how they'll, even though they may be a creative writing major, they may work on an engineering project one day. I talk about all of those things in the interview and sort of gauge the reaction to see how they feel about that. And of course, they're not always saying, yay, engineering in my creative writing world. They don't say that, and I don't expect them to, but the willingness to learn, or maybe even excitement to learn something new, is always a plus. So those are the things: excellence in writing or communication, and really good at collaboration, and for sure a willingness to learn more and expand one's repertoire and their communicative abilities.
So 5 weeks into the semester, the Writing Communications Corner has been serving the needs of many of our students here, either on campus or, as you noted, off campus as well through online platforms. If by chance I'm a student who hasn't yet been exposed to the wonderful services provided by the WCC, how would I take advantage of them going forward?
Well, I would say I wish that every student, when they receive a communicative project assignment, would immediately think about the WCC as an option for them. I wish that they would make an appointment right then, even before they start. Lots of students come by and say, I have no idea where to start. Here's my assignment, please help me. That happens a lot. And especially if someone is not sure about where to start. It's also really common for students who are excellent writers and who do well to have someone else read over their project and give them some ideas. So every student on campus, every communicative project, and I would encourage faculty as well, every time they issue a communicative project, to remind students that they should not just, oh, here's an option, but they really should use the WCC services to help them move through the project. And this is, once again, not a remediation place. Honor students, excellent writers, the consultants themselves make appointments with each other to go through projects. So every student, every communicative project. And I would remind students they can work with students who are in majors that are similar to their own major. They can work with any of the consultants. They're all cross-trained. But if they really feel more comfortable with their major, that is an option. The consultants can be an advocate for students. they have no problem calling a professor or emailing a professor and clarifying an assignment for themselves so they can help a student better. Sometimes students don't feel comfortable asking a professor for that information because it sounds like they didn't listen or they are lacking something. So the consultant can sometimes bridge that gap, and it happens quite a bit. Early in the process, and then often during the process of completing a project. Come back after you've written a little bit more, and I will say the consultants absolutely love seeing a project all the way through. They tell me about it. They say, I just saw this project all the way through and I'm so psyched about it. I can't wait to see what the student gets. We do not guarantee a certain grade. We can't do that. It, once again, it's always the student's project. But the consultants do get really excited about seeing a project all the way through. So come early, come often, and be willing to learn.
So I have one final question before we conclude today's edition of CBU Conversations. And as you know, here at Christian Brothers University, Lasallian values centered around faith, service, and community are at the very core of everything we do. That's a tradition that now dates back 3.5 centuries to when St. John Baptist de La Salle first founded the Christian Brothers. The work that's being done by the Writing and Communications Corner also is rooted and founded in those same Lasallian values. Can you talk a little bit about how you and your colleagues work to not only represent, but to model and to advance the Lasallian values of CBU?
Sure. I'm going into my 21st year directing, here at CBU, and I've been directing the WCC for 20 years. When I first started, one of the first questions I asked the first staff members was, how can we be a Lasallian entity? And I asked that often to every new staff as they come through. But that very first staff and I decided the phrase safe place is what is our biggest strategy in being Lasallian. We want to be a safe place, a safe haven, a place where students can come, any student can come without ridicule or condemnation or judgment in any sort of way. That's the bottom line. This past year, we worked collectively, the consultants and I, and really mostly the consultants, but we collaboratively wrote an inclusivity statement. It took a while because these are all, these students scrutinize writing a lot. So there was page after page after page of writing on this one statement. I won't read through the whole statement right now. I encourage everyone to look at our website under the tab, What We Do. Our inclusivity statement is written there. But in general, that statement talks about how we focus on every individual at every level to develop every individual's own voice for their best achievement. So it's that individual focus on everyone and all of the different levels at CBU. It's focused on the individual, but we collectively work on that ourselves. And I want everyone to know that this is a place where they are individual and their individual voice is definitely appreciated and touted.
That's fantastic to hear. So I want to thank you, Dr. Panetta, for joining us on today's edition of CBU Conversations. As you know, we've been joined here today by Dr. Clayanne Panetta, who shared with us more details about the fantastic work being done by her and her team of consultants at the Writing and Communications Corner here at CBU. I appreciate all that you are doing to advance the work of our university and even more importantly, to serve the needs of our students. Thank you, Dr. Panetta.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So thank you for tuning in for today's edition of CBU Conversations. I encourage you to continue to do so as we explore more of the great work that's being done here across campus at Christian Brothers University. Until then, take care, be safe, and mask up, please.